This conference will now be recorded. This
Let's get
conference
started.
will now be recorded.
So let's get started on this demo today. And feel free to stop me in between if since we are not able to hear you. Please put your message in the chat box so that I can take a look at it and answer your question if you have any. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Okay, so um, before getting started, let me introduce myself. Myself, Chandra. Like I have 11 plus years of experience in the software industry. I've been into multiple technologies during my tenure in the IT. So I've been with Java technology and some other data warehousing technologies. And for the last couple of years, I'm into AWS and DevOps technologies. I'm a AWS and DevOps certified, and I also do corporate trainings for the software companies as well as for the individuals. So this is a high level introduction about myself. Moving on to this course. So this is the agenda for today as a part of the demo, and I'll also walk you through the complete course session at the end of this demo, so that you'll know what we're gonna cover as a part of the DevOps course. Okay, so before getting to know what is DevOps and why people are very much being keen on this nowadays, let's understand let's understand what was there before the DevOps and why people are being now shifting to DevOps. What was the problem that people are facing or the organizations are facing, and that's where people are prone to move to DevOps. That's evolution of software development. So before DevOps or any other process, this was the first model the software industry used to follow is the waterfall model. So and this is maybe now it is little outdated, but this is not the model which is uh, you know not very prominent enough, because this was a very famous or the best model in that times. Okay, but maybe it is outdated as of now with the market that is progressing so fast, but this is a very prominent model during that times. Okay, so let's understand what this waterfall model is and what are the challenges that the organizations used to face. Okay, and with the current market that is running and so fast enough, daily it is progressing so fast. Why was this waterfall model was not able to take those challenges and fix them? Okay, so in this waterfall model, it is a long running process. The first stage of this waterfall model is the requirement analysis, where the people go to the clients and gather the requirements, and this is like a months of time it used to take before they get the final requirement specification. So basically, what requirement specification is, the client gives his own requirements for his product or the software that he wants to get developed. So this would take some time, okay, to get the complete requirement of that particular project. It's not just a phase-wise requirement. It's a complete requirement of that particular software, the product, where they would be having a brainstorming sessions between the client and the software development team to get the complete requirements. So this is the phase one. Once the requirements are being finalized, once we got to know what the requirements are, the second stage is the design phase. So the software development team would design the project based on the requirements that the client has specified. Like it would be a infrastructure design or it would be a project design. Everything the design would takes place in this phase two. So this is again a couple of months of time this would take before it moves on to the development team. So once the basic structure or the design or the architecture for the project is being confirmed, it moves on to the development team. Basically, the development team would check for the architecture or the design based on that, okay, and the technology that they've been using. Either it could be a Java, .NET, whatever the technology that would best suit for this particular project, which is being decided at the design phase. Okay, and this development would be started in the particular technology, and this based on the project criticality or the complexity, this would take some time because it's not just one piece of software that we are developing. It is a complete software we're going to develop. Once the development is complete, it is moved to the testing team. Okay, and the testing team would do the complete rigorous testing of the product which we have developed. And then finally, once it is tested fine, everything is working fine, then it is being moved to the production or the lab environment, which is the non-production environment. And once it is tested fine there, and finally it is moved to production, and it is being maintained. If it is been making sure like it is up and running all the time fine in the production environment. So that just comes under in the maintenance phase. So all these phases, there are 5 phases. All these phases are sequential phases. They have to wait for the other phase to complete. Until then, there has to be wait we have to be waiting for the other phase to be completed, and then they will start their work, right? So, and this is like a months of time of on each phase. It might take sometimes a year of time to complete one single product, and by the time the product gets released, maybe let's say if it has taken 8 months of time to complete a product starting from the requirement phase to the maintenance phase. Okay, so maybe the product might get outdated because it has taken 8 months of time. By then they might a new competitor or a new product might have come, or else the features that we gonna introduce at the time of requirement analysis, right? It might get outdated at the time of launch. So because the reason is it has taken 8 months of time. As an example, if you take in this scenario, it might anything can happen in this 8 months. Like features might get outdated, or the product itself might get outdated. So, and this is all a sequential process. It's a step-by-step process, one after the other we have to go through. There is no involvement of any other team in between to take care of their own job. So these are the few disadvantages that came across during this waterfall model. It was working before very well when there's a market was a little down in progressing. It was a very good model during that time, but when compared to the current market trend, the progress that it is making, maybe this model is not working out in the current situation. So this is the disadvantage that you see, the sequential process. It has to follow the step-by-step process. Nobody can involve in between, or they do their own job. They have to wait for the other phase to complete. Okay, and as I said, let's say we are in the development phase or in the testing phase, and there is a new requirement comes in. and that would be a change, that could be a change at the design level or at the development level as well. So you need to restart your development or the design phase again when there is a new requirement comes in, right? So it is again a re-effort that you're gonna spend, and that's gonna waste, or that is gonna extra effort that you're gonna put on this product, where it might impact your timeline on the project deadlines, right? So and as I said, like after the tenure, after the product might release, the features or the product might get outdated as well, because we are taking a longer time of months to years. So this is what the waterfall model, how it has executed, and these are the few disadvantages that it came across as part of the current situation the market is trending. So so people have found out the challenges or the disadvantages of this model, and they came up with a new model which is addressing most of the challenges or the disadvantages of the waterfall model, okay, which is the agile model. So this has resolved most of the challenges or the disadvantages that came around in the waterfall model, and people started following this model. Let's understand what this model is. So if you see in the waterfall model, it's a long-term process of from starting from the requirement analysis to this implementation, right? Every phase its own timeline. Every phase takes their own time to complete and hand it over to the next team. Whereas in this agile model, we are not going to wait until the complete product is complete. Okay, so what actually it is done in the agile model is we gonna take the requirements from the client, and it's not that we need the complete requirements at one time. If there is one small requirement that client is needed, it is just he gonna give that particular one requirement. It's not needed that we need to wait until the product complete requirements have been finalized. Let's say you are building a e-commerce website. Okay, in that you wanted to add a feature called search. Okay, you just need to you just the client just will update us saying that I need a search functionality in this product. It is just one feature. It's and the respective teams will start looking at working on it. It's not that we need to wait for where this search functionality in this product, okay, and we need to wait for the complete product finalized requirements. So that is how it is being worked. Like how this is being achieved. Let's see in the agile model now. So what happens exactly is it is a collection of client requirements have been collated in one of the document or in the tool. Okay, and based on the priority of these requirements, let's say there are 10 requirements that the client has given us, and these 10 are not the complete requirements. Okay, it could be like 20 to 30 requirements would suffice this complete software development. But initially, let's say client has given only 10, and we're gonna not wait until this 30 requirements given by the client, because since there are some few requirements which already has given us, we'll get started on this. Okay, so based on the priority of the client, in these 10 requirements we're going to pick all of them. Okay, let's say in this 10 we're going to pick only 3. For the time being, we're going to pick only 3 which has a clear understanding of the requirements, and rest all, let's say they are not very much clear, but they are there on the board, on the client requirement board, but which are not clear. The client is still brainstorming on that. So we don't need to wait until they come up with all the finalized requirements. What are the requirements that are finalized? The teams would get started on the development or development on the functionality. So how this is being achieved? Let's see that first. This is the complete workflow. okay, of the agile model. What actually the client does is he gonna put all his requirements in a backlog called product backlog. So it is a list of requirements, and it's not mandatory that he has to put complete requirements of that particular software all at a time. Whenever he gets time, whenever he has a clear requirement, he gonna put those requirements in a documented way in this product backlog. So once the requirements, whatever the requirement that he has put it in the backlog, the team, the development team or the design team or whatever the teams will go and check with the priority, check of this priority of these requirements from the client. Let's say he wants number 3, 4, and 7 are the top priority items for him. So we're gonna pick only those, okay, and that three requirements we're gonna start working on it, and we're gonna design, development, testing, everything is done only for those three requirements. And how this has been done, once those three requirements have been put it in a sprint, which is called a small block of development. Okay, in agile model the sprint would be around 2 to 3 weeks of time. In this 2 to 3 weeks of time, whatever the effort that a team can accomplish to complete this requirement is been set in this sprint. Sprint is like, you know, a multiple block. Like if you see in this complete workflow, develop functionality, integrate and test, this is one block. Okay, this is one set of a sprint. And again there is another sprint with another different requirement, develop functionality 2, integrate and test, this is one chunk, this is one sprint. Okay, similarly you will be splitting your requirements into one sprint. Sprint is nothing but, if you see down below, for every requirement that you pick from the product backlog, you're gonna plan, you do the development, you test that feature, and then finally you give it review for the client so that he will test it and he will give the feedback. Okay, so this happens in every sprint. Now that in this waterfall model, there is no client involvement after the requirement analysis is done. Only after this complete product is developed, then it again goes back to the client to review and comes back with this feedback. If there is any new change he wants, again the complete flow has to go through, right? So but whereas in this agile model, you are making this complete software into bits and pieces based on the requirement that are there, and each requirement you are going through complete cycle of life cycle of a software. You are planning it, you are coding it, and then you testing it, and then finally you are giving it to the customer to give their feedback in the sprint one, which is of, let's say, three requirements you are working on for the time being. All the three requirements have been complete and you have given it for the review to the client, and the client would give you the feedback. Let's say if he says, okay, in these two requirements I need a small change, in these three requirements I need a small change, why don't you make this change for me? Okay, so then since this is not a complete software, right, so we have picked only three out of them. So in the next sprint we're gonna add the client requirement, the new requirement into the sprint 2, and we'll work on it. So that way the client is not waiting till the product is complete, and we are going to give him the bits and pieces of the software, which is a working software, we say. It's not that something which is not going to work, that we're gonna show it to the client. We're gonna give to the client the working software. Let's say if it is a search functionality, we'll implement that search functionality, and we give that search functionality so that the client can test it and review it, and then he gives the feedback. And then going forward, like we're going to execute the rest of the requirements which are very much clear on the requirement, and we pick all of them based on the client priority and we execute in a sprint, and so on. These are to build one complete software. We're gonna go different multiple iterations of these sprints. Okay, some can be two. If it is a small software, it could be done in a 2 sprint cycle, or it could be more than 10. So based on the project or the software that the team is going to develop, we're going to segregate or we're going to plan these number of sprints, right? So in this, there are a lot of challenges that which we have came across in the waterfall model has been addressed. The advantages are the product is delivered much faster compared to the waterfall model. In the waterfall model, you are waiting till the complete software is being developed, right? There is no client interaction in between, and there is no client feedback is given. But here, since you are made your software into bits and pieces, and you are developing it, and once one piece is ready, you are showing it to the client and getting the feedback. If any changes needed, you are immediately applying them into your next cycle of sprint, and you are working on it. So this way you have a constant communication feedback or the communication with the client, so that the client is very much satisfied, or he's very much trusted enough that his software is being developed as per his requirement, right? So this is something which is not there in the waterfall model, and this is being achieved in the agile development or agile model. So the sprint backlog, you have selected three requirements, and then in this three requirements you again split up into multiple tasks, which is also called in the agile terminology user stories. So once these tasks, individual tasks has been splitted down, and the sprint is being worked out with this plan code test. So different teams will get involved. Okay, based on that, they're going to collaborate with each other and execute that particular piece of task. Okay, and then on a daily basis, they're going to have a daily meeting so that they will track the sprint of the task that each and everybody is owning. Okay, and then they move forward, and finally they're going to demo it to the client, and once that is fine, then they're going to deliver as a full project or the software. So this is what the agile model that people started following when they found that there are some glitches in the waterfall model as per the current latest market that it is trending. uh, if you see this most of the waterfall model challenges have been addressed by the agile model, but still there are some disadvantages that are there in the agile model as well when compared to the market trend, the current market trend. So few of them are: product is not tested in the production system, and the developers and the operations teams work in silos. So when this product is ready, okay, this is something which is tested in the lab environment, which is the non-production environment. Once it is finalized that it is working fine in the non-production environment, it is deployed in the production. We never know, whatever that is worked in the non-production environment will definitely work in the production environment, isn't it? There could be a chance of issue in the production environment. So this is something a problem in the agile cycle, which is not which should not be ignored. So this is one a disadvantage, and the other main disadvantage is the developers. See, this is basically for a product development, okay, but there is a team which also put effort after the development, after the product is deployed, after the product is deployed, isn't it? So to get this product deployed, we need a separate team. So this is actually a product development team, but there is a team which does the deployment, releases and all. So that is not haven't come across in the agile model. So if you see, if I take if I show you in pictorially, let me take, If I say if this is a dev team, okay, let's say this is a client and this is a development team and this is operations team. This is client. So Agile is filling a bridge between client and the development team, isn't it? So there is, what are the challenges that it has came across with the client and the development that has been resolved by Agile model. But the bridge between the development and the operations team is something which is still not clear or been had a bridge so that they will work collaboratively so that any issues that come across between these two teams would be filled. So there is some gap between the developer team and the operations team, because once the product is developed, the development team hand it over to the operations team so that they would release in respective environments. Okay, and so if this is working fine, it's okay, and if there is any issue, then again the operations team has to come back to the development team and give them a feedback so that they're going to restart their work and fix those issues and comes back. So it is a cycle. It is a cycle process where the agile methodology is not actually focused on this development to the release, but mostly the agile is focused from the client to the development of the software. So this is somewhere like the development team is working on their own and the operations team is working on their own, but there is no such collaboration that is being happened between these two teams so that the gaps between these two are being resolved. So this is one where is this is one challenge that it has came across. Okay, so this is one challenge that it came across in the agile model, which has to be taken care. Okay, because so that it's not just development which is top priority, which is development uh, important. There is also the operation stuff or the operations team which would take care of this release activities or installation of this software into the respective environments and all. That is also equally important, isn't it? So let me erase this. I think, yeah. Okay, so this is where like agile has resolved most of the issues that has came across in the waterfall model, but there are few other areas which agile is also failed in addressing when the teams like development team and the operations team when the teams like working on silos. So this is where actually the DevOps comes into picture. So DevOps is something an advance to agile model. It is not a technology, it is not a language, it is not a process. It is something, a culture between the teams to brought in together to communicate, collaborate, and then execute their actions. So it is like a culture that is brought into the software development teams. So if I take a bookish definition, DevOps is a software development strategy which bridges the gap between the development team and the operations team. So before getting to know the development and the operations teams, the bridge between these terms, let's understand what this development team is. What are the challenges that this team is facing, okay, during the software development, and what this operations team is, what is their roles and responsibilities, what are their challenges, okay, that comes under when they are doing the software release. So, and how this DevOps culture is bridging the gap between that. Okay, so let's understand the development team challenges and the operations team challenges first. So if I draw a picture saying that, as I said, this is client, this is dev team, and this is operations team. Let's suppose that. So this is fine with the Agile, isn't it? So Agile has a problem with this piece. So as I said, DevOps is advancement of Agile. So this is all there in DevOps. This culture is there because DevOps is following Agile, and to this advancement they are making the challenges that came across between these development and operations team. So let's first understand what are the challenges that the dev team came across, and what are the operations team that challenges that this team came across, and how this DevOps culture or the DevOps is resolved all of this. So the first and foremost thing is, the development team. It's like, like in a developer team, like you might have a number of developers, and each developer is making their own code based on the tasks that have been assigned as per the requirements. So let's say if you have 20 developers in a development team, and everybody in this team pushing their code, isn't it, as part of their own task, which is a part of the software product. So it is difficult to manage these 20 developers code because they have their own code, and they're going to push all of this code into one common repository. There should be a multiple there should be multiple code branches that going into this code repository, and 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 to get out of this, now that there are 20 developers have been pushing their code into this code repository, and as a final product you have to integrate all this code and finally come up with one single code which would work as a software, isn't it? So managing this code, multiple developers code, and integrating it to one single piece of code which make the software work, which makes the piece of software work, is a big challenge over here, because uh, because you are having multiple developers, and each developer would be pushing their own piece of code, and there could be one piece of file that multiple developers would be working on the same piece of code that 2 to 3 developers would be working on. There could be a conflict that might come across, isn't it? So it would be a hard time for anybody who is integrating all of this code, okay, and making it to one workable piece of code, okay, wherein when you execute this, it would work as expected as a piece of software that the team is working in that particular sprint, sprint one. So this is the big challenge for the development team to integrate all of their code. If somebody working on the same piece of code, if a couple of people are working on the same piece of code, we never know which piece of code is the latest one and which is the right one. So that would become a very difficult situation for the people who are integrating this code. And it's not just that. There would be some time zones, developers would be working on different regions. One would be working on US, one would be working on from India. So, and there could be some code that people in the US might push in, which might don't know the people or the developers in India, because there is a different time zone. They have to come back and see and look for those new files or updated code. So this is again a big problem when the people are in the development phase. So these are few challenges that the development team came across. So which has to be resolved. Now coming to this operations team, once let's say the product is developed by the development team, making sure all these challenges they have gone through, and finally they have come up with one single piece of code, and that is a working code, and we are ready with our software code. Now we have given this to the operations team. The operations team is responsible to install this software in this environment. Either it could be a non-production environment or in a production environment, so that anybody can test it and finally review it and finally confirm, so that that can be deployed to the production environment. So the challenges for the operations team is, making sure this particular software, whatever this development team has given, is to be installed in a particular environment that is always available. So once they install, they have to make sure that that product is always accessible and it is never down. So they have to make sure that the machine is always up and running. Okay, and the application is also properly configured in such a way that there is no downtime to this application or a product, isn't it? So there should be an they have to make sure that the product is always highly available to the end user. That is one. The second thing is, it's it's not that always once you set up your environment, that is always ready for you. There could be some upgrades has to be happen, isn't it? When the time going on, the OS operating system might need an upgrade. So during the upgrade, you should make sure that the product which is installed on that particular machine, it never goes down, isn't it? So you have to make sure during your maintenance activity as well, during your maintenance activity as well, you have to. So if I take operations challenges, one is high availability. High availability. You have to make sure that they are highly available. The machine is the application is highly available. The second thing is reduce downtime. So whenever there is an OS upgrade or any maintenance activity, you should make sure that that particular environment is not down, and the application is always available. So this is one other challenge, because they have been installing on that machine, and at the same time they're gonna try to upgrade the OS or do any kind of a maintenance activity, where there are some chances where the application uh, might get interrupted or impacted. Okay, so this could be one other challenge to the operations team, and which has to be resolved, isn't it? So these are the few challenges that the dev team or the operations team that came across individually, uh, because they are working in their own environment and in their own silos, and they are never interacted with each other until the final product is complete and their own task has been done. So normally the development team interact with the ops team when the complete development is done, and the operations team comes or interact with the dev team only when there is some issue when during their installation. So in between there is no proper communication. This is where the bridge is not there, where some problems which could be resolved at the initial stage point of time, but they are being dragged till the end, that made the product uh, delayed in the final delivery. So this is where the DevOps came into picture, and they have they have put in a culture where in which the dev team and the operations team would collaborate with each other, communicate with each other, and do their activity, on a daily basis. Okay, so this is what introduction about the dev team and the operations team and what are the challenges that they came across. Now let's see how this DevOps is resolved all of these challenges. Okay, so before moving to that, let's also understand the organization needs. Okay, uh, what exactly the organization need to accomplish uh, that business in their industry, in the market. The first and foremost thing on an organization, like not only the software industry or any other industry, what exactly they would need is the faster delivery of their product. They don't want to wait too much long when the requirements are very clear. They want it to be done or delivered as soon as possible. That's the first thing. Any company wants it, isn't it? And the second thing, it's not that you are delivering it fast, you will not maintain the quality of it. So you have to also maintain the quality of the product, like maybe the coding standards or the release environments. You have to maintain proper quality along with the faster delivery. And the third thing is organization, if let's say if there is a faster delivery, but for the quality, if they're spending too much of money and they're not getting as much as that revenue out of that particular product. Okay, and it doesn't make any sense, because you are you are spending on a product and the product is not giving you as much as that much revenue on whatever that you are spending on that product development, isn't it? So that is of no use to the organization. So it's not just the product delivery, faster delivery, or the quality. You also have to not to spend too much of a money in that, isn't it? So you have to spend very less amount, and you have to get all this delivery, faster delivery, and a good quality product. Once you have that good quality product and you have spent less money, it's not that the product is not available all the time. You also have to make sure that product is always available to the end user, so that they would get the fruitful benefits of that particular software. So then only the organization would be successful in their product development or the product business, isn't it? So these are the key factors that any organization would look into, and this is where the DevOps would mostly focused on, and that is where the DevOps concept has become more popular in the market right now. Let's move on. So I think this we actually discussed as a part of the development and operations challenges. So there would be a lot of wait time in the code development, isn't it? In the earlier phases, in the waterfall model. But with the agile comes into picture, the faster the code development is done, but there is a delay or the wait time in the deployment process, because with the operations team and the development team working in silos, there is some gap. Whereas with the DevOps, this has been resolved by setting up a bridge between the development team and the operations team, so that they keep on communicating or collaborating with each other. So if you see, the continuous integration ensures there is a quick development of the code, the faster testing, and the speedy feedback. So the development team and the uh, operations team would keep on communicating with each other, giving the feedback, and that is where, like, if any issues comes in, okay, so they're gonna resolve there and then move forward. So there is no such issue which is not known till the end of this product complete. So this is the dev challenges. Okay, and this is the operation challenges which we just discussed: the maintenance issues and the upgrade issues, and the reducing of the downtime. So the operations team has to maintain the high availability of the product, and also making sure during the downtime, even then the application or the product is has to be accessible by the end user. So these are something which we just discussed. So moving on to the life cycle. Just like we have seen the agile workflow, there is some workflow for the DevOps as well, and this workflow will let us know or help us understand how the bridge between the DevOps and the operations team is being set. Let's see in this cycle now. Let's see the workflow of it. So if you see, if you go back to our agile model, if you go back to our agile model, this is a sprint, and the sprint follows plan, code, test, and review of each uh, small piece of your software. Correct? So in the same way, as I said, DevOps is an advancement of agile model, which is nothing but it is a superset of this agile. So it includes agile as well as it also has some extra enhancement to this model. Let's see what that is in this workflow. Like if you see, you have all this. This is agile, and there is an advancement to this agile model is something that you see in this yellow. So let's see what this is. So basically we know, like any project comes in, it is first planned, and then the developers would do the coding. Once the coding is complete, it goes to the build. You'll build your code, and it finally it goes to the testing team to test it. And this is where the complete development and the design team is involved. Okay, and then it is handed over to the operations team, isn't it? So operations team is something, the activities of the operations team, that is something that you see here in yellow. So this is handed over to the release, which is operations team's activity, and then they would do the deployment. Okay, okay, and then they maintain it, and then they monitor it. So this is the complete life cycle of a DevOps. Whereas if you see the agile model, the life cycle of an agile model is something that you see in blue. But the life cycle of a DevOps is the complete life cycle of development team and the operations team. Okay, how this is achieved, how this both came together or collaborated, that we see in the going forward slides. So everything, as I said, DevOps is not a technology or not a language. It is just a culture that is brought to the teams, isn't it? So this is achieved by using tools of DevOps. There are a lot of DevOps tools that are been there in the market, but it is something our call, like whichever the tool that you're gonna use and whichever the tool that it is right fits to your requirement. So if you see this diagram, so this is the developers team, and this is the operators or the operations team. Okay, and these are the activities that each the team that does. This the development team does these activities, and this is the operations team does. So if you keenly observe, earlier we are just working on silos, like the planning team would do the planning, and development team would do the coding, and they do the build, and the testing team would do the testing, and they're doing on their own. Now with the DevOps comes in, there are some tools which would help these teams or these activities to collaborate or talk between each other. Okay, so like if you see, we do the planning in a different tool, okay, which is mentioned over here, like Jira or something. And the code repository, as I said earlier, we used to use different code uh, centralized repositories. With this DevOps coming in, Git is the repository that it is being used. As I said, right, we have challenges for the development. Like if multiple developers push in their code, it is difficult to manage their code well integrated, isn't it? So Git is a kind of a tool. It will resolve all such issues of integration, and it will maintain each and every copy of each individual developer's code. So it will be easy using this Git tool, it will be easy for anybody to visualize the each developer's code and which would be the latest code and which is the right code, and then finally integration is made easy using this tool. So with this, maybe you might have got a little understanding. Okay, there are some DevOps tools. Using these tools, that would resolve the challenges that the teams are facing right now. So this is one tool which a developer team would use, which would resolve their challenges. And come going forward, there are build tools like Maven and Cradle, which would do the build for this code which the team has built. Like once the code is built and it is integrated, and these are the few tools like Maven and Cradle. There are a lot of other tools which are there, but I've just put in only two, which are very much famous and most of the industries are being used. So this would do the build, and finally the testing team would use the JUnit using the Selenium tool, okay, using the Selenium framework, and they would do the testing. So this is one piece of the development, isn't it? There is another piece which is an operations teams piece. So this is fine. Using these tools, it has been a little automated for me, right? So but how about I'm going to communicate with the operations team? There is, if you see this workflow, there is an arrows coming up over here. There are some tools which would allow the other team to collaborate or communicate with each other. So once the testing is complete, the testing team has to communicate it to the operations team, so that saying that, okay, so this is complete and this is something that you have to do going in the next phase. Like please deploy or release this software which has been tested fine and is working fine. So it is not something, it is not something they go directly reach out to them and say. It is something, a tool, using a tool, you're gonna collaborate with this activity and you're gonna tell them, so that it would be triggering their action to what task that they have to accomplish. So there is an integration tools like Jenkins or the Bamboo, where you're going to configure, and then based on this you're going to trigger the next task of the operations team. So let's say if the deploy failure, it again goes back to the respective dev team saying that, okay, there is a deployment failure, please take a look at it. And this is not something manually they are going to do. This is completely automated, and at the end of this course we will see how this complete automation is done. Okay, so the operations team would use these tools. We'll go in detail of these tools when we go to the later sessions of our course. Okay, what these tools, how they're going to deploy, how they're going to operate, and how this monitor. So for monitoring we're going to use these tools. For deployment operating, we're going to use these tools for the operations team. We'll and these are the top tools of DevOps which most of the industries are being used. Okay, moving on. As I said, I think I have actually explained that in a pictorial way. I just wanted to reiterate the same thing what we have, what I have explained so far. So this is one piece of development, and this is the other piece of operations team, isn't it? So this is called continuous integration, because you are been integrating your code to build and do the testing. So there is a lot of integration that you are doing to your code. Like there's hundreds of developers are pushing their code into this Git repository, and that Git repository is making sure that everybody's code is captured. Okay, and is also helping us to integrate with the latest code and the correct code, so that it would build properly, and finally it would give to the testing team so that they can run their testing, automated testing. So this is a kind of an integration that you are doing, which is a continuous integration, and it's not just one time you're doing, because you're working in bits and pieces of your working software. So I take two requirements, I do build those code to that two requirements, and I build it and I give it for testing, and the testing team should test it and give me a feedback. And again, I would pick the next two requirements and I do the coding and I build it and I give it for testing. So in this, every team, the testing team or the development team or the building team, like every team is continuously involved in their activity. It's not just I do all the coding, then only I build it, and then only I finally give it for testing. Till then the testing team will be sitting idle, isn't it, until I build the complete code. It's not that way in the DevOps. So whatever the small requirement that you pick in, you do that code, build it and give it for testing. In the meanwhile, the coding team will not sit idle. They will pick the other requirement and they will do their coding. So it is a continuous process. It's a continuous integration that you're doing. So once this is tested, let's say one piece of software is tested, like two requirements are being came into for testing, and this testing is finalized and it is working fine, then they're gonna give it for release for the operations team. Let's say there is some bug during this installation, this again automatically goes back to this complete team and asking it to check whether this software having some problem, please fix that issue. So this again follow the same process in fixing the issue. Instead of taking the new requirement, they would look into this issue, fix the code, okay, and build it and test it and again release it until this piece of working software is been full-fledgedly completed with no issues. Then it goes to this next is the operations team, then it is handed over to this operation team. To we have separate tools to do all this continuous integration. That's what we have seen here, right? Now once this is finalized, it has to go to this operations team to deploy and release, right? So for that, there is an intermediate softwares of or the tools of DevOps, which are like few I have mentioned in the Jenkins and the Bamboo. Okay, so using those tools, it's gonna interact with the other phase of this development, which is the deployment. So the first two requirements have come in and tested fine, it is working fine, then it is been released and no issues found out, then it is been gone to the deployment using those tools, Jenkins or the Bamboo tool. So the particular piece is being deployed, okay, and it's been verified, and finally it is being monitored. It is being uh, keep on monitoring the system whether that is always up and running. So this is again not the complete software they have deployed. It's the bits of pieces of software they have deployed. So this is again a continuous process until this software is complete, full-fledged. So even just like this continuous integration, this is also a continuous deployment. So when this uh, piece of software comes to release and is working fine, it is deployed. So similarly, all the pieces of software is being deployed until the full-fledged software is being integrated and is finally deployed to the client. And for every deployment, the client is also involved to verify and give us the feedback. So if there is any changes has to be done, they would be taken care in the next cycle of this software development. So it's a continuous integration and a continuous deployment process, and there is no team sitting idle until any other phase is complete. So every team is busy with their own activity. So this is what the DevOps workflow is. This is how it has been modeled at a high level using the DevOps tools. So as I clearly mentioned, like I think we have got to know already what are the challenges that it has resolved, and they lead to the advantages of the DevOps. So if you see, I have picked a few of the these are the top advantages of DevOps. If the time taken to create and deliver a software is reduced, because you are not waiting to complete the complete software. You are working on the bits and pieces of the software, and that pieces of software you are giving it for testing and then giving it for verification to the client. So any changes that comes in, it comes in very early stage of your software development, so that you can take care and fix it or add it to the complete software. isn't it? So there's a time taken to create and deliver software is reduced, and complexity of making the application is also reduced, because if you are deploying the complete software all at once, there could be a chance of breaking, or if there is any issue, it is very difficult to debug, to find out what that issue is, isn't it? So it is, since you are making into small pieces of your entire software, it is very easy to find out, if there any problem occurs, and it's very easy to maintain that particular small piece of application or a software, right? Right. And this is one major advantage, is you are collaborating with development team and the operation team using the tools, isn't it? So these are few tools which have been used by the developer team to accomplish their job, and there are some softwares or the tools which have been used by the operations team to accomplish their job. But there is a bridge between these two. There are some tools like Jenkins and Bamboo. There are some tools which are bridging between these dev team and operation team, so that there would be a continuous integration and a continuous deployment. There is no stoppage at all. It's a continuous process. So this is where big advantage of a DevOps, uh, using DevOps. So as I said, like the last point, the continuous integration and the continuous delivery ensure faster time to market. So following all of this, DevOps process, you don't need to wait months of time. Every day you might release a bit pieces of software, because you are working on a piece of software, and that is not just development, you are going till the deployment to, and till verification, isn't it? So every day you're going to release a piece of software. It's not just you're going to wait till until you completely develop a software, and the client has to wait until you completely you handed over your software. It's not taking a month or a weeks of time. It will be in days, of time. So at a whole, a waterfall model would take months and years of time to build a complete software, whereas agile would take weeks of time to build a software, whereas if you follow DevOps, it might take days of time to build a software or product. So I think this is what the background of DevOps at a very high level. Okay, and this comes to an end to our demo session of DevOps. Hope it is you were able to follow, and you have got an at least a high level overview of the DevOps as of now. But going forward, when we go in depth of these sessions, the course content, we will go through the different tools that we have mentioned. How we gonna use these tools to accomplish this complete workflow. Any questions, like you can uh, put me in the chat, since we are not able to hear you. Richard, like you can key in your questions if you have any in the chat box, so that I can answer. Like to your question, is there any level of coding involved? Like you would be doing a coding of scripting, not exactly the coding of an application development. So if you see, uh, and that is also not in all the phases. If I go here, like most of thing, it would be a configuration into the tool, because application development is being done by the application development team. Okay, and this is something most of a configuration done by the operations team. But as I said, we're gonna use these tools. Most of these tools are being configured to accomplish this DevOps process. But there are few things, to automate your processes. Let's say this Puppet or the Chef or Ansible. Okay, these are configuration management tools where you need, if you want to automate this deployment process, as I said, like this is not a manual process, isn't it? So to have this processes automated, there would be a scripting has to be done, a slide scripting, not exactly like an application development you're gonna do like a Java .NET. You're not going to use those technologies because they're not part of this DevOps process. DevOps process is to integrate all of these tasks, okay, in an automated way. So for that, uh, you need a little bit of scripting knowledge of this. Uh, where is it? Of this few of these tools, and this is not and this is again at a very high level, not very in depth. That's like we're gonna develop an application or a product. So a slightly configuration, to automate this configuration in the tools, we will be automating using the scripting technologies like Puppet, Chef, or Ansible. So we would be doing a little bit script coding, but not as like a Java or a .NET application development coding. So most of them it would be configuration, and there is a slight bit of scripting which we have to know to automate the things, fully automate the things. Did I answer your question? Great. Any questions? We also gain insight into Linux environment? Yeah, so let me pull up my course content. So this is my this is the course content as part of the DevOps. So these are the key things, right? Continuous development, continuous integration, continuous deployment, so and continuous management. So as a part of this, these are the phases of our development life cycle, isn't it? So as a part of each phase, like we'll go in detail of each and every tool and we'll learn it. So what is, to your question, we would need a little, as I said, like we have to have a little scripting to be done as part of doing the complete automation. We also need to have a basic idea of Linux. So this is where like I also added in our course content. So we'll also teach the Linux basics so that it is not completely new to you, uh, along with the tools that we're gonna use and integrate as part of this DevOps course. We'll teach the Linux basics as well. We'll give the insight to it. Any other questions? Yes. So that's where, right, if you remember, I was mentioning the cost. In one of these advantages, I was mentioning cost, less spending. So we're gonna use lot of tools. If all of these tools are licensed and you have to pay for it, it doesn't make any sense whether you are building your software very quick and with a good quality, but if you're spending too much of money into this, which is very much less when you roll out your product, that doesn't make any sense to the organization, isn't it? So most of the tools are open source, so you don't need to buy licenses for these tools. These are all open source and they are free, Okay, so you don't need to spend much of money as a organization level, as an individual level to learn also. All of them are open source free tools. So that is where DevOps is made everybody to use it, because there is no much of a purchasing has to be done to use these tools. So I'll have free access to these tools so that I can learn. Yes, yes, that's correct. Anything else? Okay, thank you so much. Hope you like the session and you are able to follow, and hope you got the high level summary or introduction of what DevOps is. Great, great. All right, then, thank you so much, Richard. It's been uh, a nice session. Unfortunately, I could not able to speak to you, but hopefully in our next session, maybe I'll be able to speak with you. And that's all for today. Thank you so much. See you in our next session.
This conference will now be recorded.